program Behind the Scene, where all the crimes are revealed. On Sunday, a rob and murder case was reported in Seri Kembangan. The victim was found dead in her own house by a neighbor. And today, we will take you guys to the real crime scenes.
On February 16, 2018, approximately at 2 p.m., Sudan police respond to a call to investigate the death of Sally Ruth in her own house at Seri Kembangan. There, they found the victim was stabbed in the chest and dead due to the blood loss. Police also found signs of struggle from the house conditions and the victim's injury. A few evidence was believed left by the criminals, such as footprints, fingerprints, and blood due to a scuffle with the victims. The evidence was brought to the lab for further investigations. Until now, police are actively tracking the suspects, and the motive of the crime is not yet known for sure.
As a recall, on February 16, Sally, who is 26 years old, was murdered. That was 11 days ago. So here I am pleased to announce that we have arrested 3 suspects that involved in this case. So our detectives are currently working on the charging documents. And yesterday, we received an information from 2 witnesses who came to the police officer, and we get the information about one suspect that had a last conversation with Sally before she was killed. The real goal for coming out here is we want to encourage another witnesses to come and step forward and help us. So we hope that we can bring the person to the justice, and if the 3 suspects are really involved in this criminal case, they will be charged with first-degree murder for Sally's death.
DNA fingerprinting is commonly used in the identification of the criminal, which recently used in a highly publicized murder trial. There are a few methods that practicing in DNA fingerprinting, such as restriction fragment length polymorphism (RFLP), polymerase chain reaction (PCR), PCR-mediated restriction site modification (PRSM), and also short tandem repeat (STR). Among all the methods, we will use STR to analyze the DNA, as it is the most common method practicing in Malaysia forensic team.
For the procedure, first a PCR polymerase chain reaction is carried out to amplify the DNA so that 1 million of identical DNA fragments is produced. This process required DNA sample, Taq polymerase, DNA nucleotide, and fluorescently dyed DNA primers. This process will be repeated over and over again for a few cycles. Now we have millions of DNA and is sufficient to use for analysis. Next, gel electrophoresis will be used to separate the DNA fragment based on their size. DNA fragment with smaller size will move faster in the gel. The negative charged DNA will migrate to the positive electrode. Then bands will appear on the gel, representing the DNA fragment. After that, Southern blot will be used to detect specific DNA fragment. The DNA molecules are transferred from the gel to a nylon membrane, so the DNA bending pattern is replicated on the nylon membrane. Then, the radioactive labeled DNA probe will hybridize to the specific DNA fragment. An X-ray film is exposed to the nylon membrane to highlight the location where the radioactive DNA probe binds to the DNA fragment. Then, X-ray film is developed to display bending pattern, giving us a DNA fingerprint. Now, we can compare DNA sample from the crime scene to the suspect to look for murderer. Victims also can be identified by using the same method.
2 men were among 5 people rounded up by the police in connection with the murder. The arrest of the suspect, aged 20 and 22, were arrested at their apartment. 2 of them were believed under the influence of the drug. In the follow-up operations, police arrested a man aged 25 earlier today, who was the last person contacted by the victims. Shoe size fingerprint, and blood of all of the three suspects were taken to compare with the evidence found in the crime scenes. All the data, especially regarding the DNA profile of the suspects, will be protected by.
We do have legislation for the suspect that have been suspected with crime. So it's called the Serum Assay or STD Identification Act on 2009. So this act allows police to collect the sample of suspect, both genetics, profile, and also samples. So both of the profile and sample can be stored independently, and if someone has been a suspect for crime, their data can be taken. But in 2012, the addition to the act, if suspect has been innocent, so their data will be removed from the network.
Based on the result, we are able to identify the real criminal for this case.
Okay, so Alhamdulillah, today we are able to identify the real criminal for this case. So actually we have our own database, DNA database in Malaysia. So the DNA fingerprinting is actually used to identify the real criminal. It is used to distinguish between a person because in our DNA, the DNA sequence between individual are different. So by looking at the differences, we can identify the real criminal for this case. And it is not only used to identify the criminal, the suspect, and also the victim, but DNA fingerprinting can be used for civil proceeding like parentage and also immigration case. And the challenge that we have by having our own database is regarding the public awareness. So the public awareness is very important regarding the DNA users and also the safety of their data, because if they are not aware about this, people can easily manipulate their information. And one more thing is there is a question that people keep asking, and the answer is still being discussed. The question is, since we have our own database in Malaysia, who has the complete authority over the DNA data bank? So we are still discussing regarding this matter. So I think that's all. Thank you.
That is why DNA fingerprinting is very important in our country in order to catch the real criminal. See you guys in the next episode, Behind the Scenes.